All right, we are in Arizona and the Superstition Mountains, and we made it about 50 yards from the parking lot before we had to stop and use the bathroom. So I'm sure we are not the only people who have to go to the bathroom every single time you get to a trailhead, regardless of how long it's been since you went before. But so that is the Peralta trailhead behind us, and my wife and I, she's up there. We are here for a 2-night, 3-day trip, and we're actually out in Phoenix for a wedding, and we've been to the Superstitions before and decided to make the most out of it and do some sightseeing and some backpacking while we're here. So right now we're headed toward Weaver's Needle, and that's where we're going to spend the first night. So it's less than 4 miles to where we're going to camp, but it's pretty much uphill the entire way. And we're both carrying about a little over a gallon of water each. So a little more weight than we normally be carrying. So it's a little warmer than we thought it would be. I mean, we had a rough idea what the weather was going to be like, but it feels like it's about 75, at least at the trailhead. And I think it's roughly about 1,000 foot of elevation gain and just a little bit over 3 miles. So on previous trips we've done, it's been our estimation that the ideal elevation gain over 4 miles is about 1,000 feet. Anything beyond that, depending on how heavy your pack is a lot more strenuous. So we've done hikes that are, 2,500, 3,000 feet of elevation gain in 4 miles. And actually most of those we did when we were less experienced and carrying a lot more weight. But even with a moderate pack, any more than that is certainly not something we avoid, but something you kind of have to be in the mood to do. So we're about 1.2 miles in, and got lucky, had a couple flat sections for a short stretch. Sun's finally at least behind the mountain that we're on the other side of, which is awesome. And actually I couldn't really get an accurate weather forecast because I checked 4 or 5 different sources and they basically all said something different. And the range was as much as 12 or 15 degrees on what they said the high was going to be at the Peralta, near the Peralta trailhead anyway. So I probably should have called the ranger station, but it's a little bit hotter than I thought by about 10 degrees or so. But it wouldn't have really changed much, other than my socks. My socks are a little bit heavy. But other than that, I'm wearing what I would normally have worn. And there's our first shot of Weaver's Needle up there in the top middle of the frame. I just came up the side of this mountain off the trail and found a pretty epic campsite. So actually, you can see my wife making her way up. And I actually have to go back and get my pack. So I didn't want to haul my pack all the way up here until I was assured that there was a spot to camp. But the view is pretty phenomenal. So there's my pack. My wife is just crossing that right there. We were gonna camp somewhere kind of like in the middle of the frame right about now, which is kind of set down in a little bit more. Come on up, I'm gonna rest and then I'll come back for my pack. That way I can watch you come up from here. This was only about 3 miles from the trailhead, so we decided to cut it a little bit shorter than we were going to. We were going to go all the way to Weaver's Needle and camp there, but we got started a little later. We didn't get started until late afternoon, and right now it's about 4:30 and it gets dark about 6:15. So I didn't want to be looking for a campsite, especially off trail, because where we were going to camp near Weaver's Needle was completely off trail. So I didn't want to be doing that at dusk or let alone at dark, even with headlamps. Actually a chopper hovering. Oh, it moved. It looked like it was looking for somebody almost. I mean, it was low and it was hovering right over the edge of that mountain. Actually just gathering firewood. Oh, there, you can see it. They could just be training for something. But, I mean, they're flying low and they're circling the same area. I hope they don't see us thinking that we're the person, whatever the hell they're looking for. Don't wave at it, because then it's going to look like we're trying to flag it down. That seems like a dangerous flight pattern if they weren't looking for something. It says sheriff. Huh? Yeah. I mean, it knows now that they're not looking for us. If they are looking for somebody, we would have been waving our arms. Just start like waving our arms crazy, and then when they get down, be like, oh no, I just wanted to say sweet chopper, man. What is that?
Chicken fried rice.
Probably right there. The old-fashioned way. Actually, there's a little bit of a breeze up here. Yeah, that stuff goes up like gasoline.
I figured it would. That's why I dragged that whole tree over here.
Let's get some bigger stuff on there. Yeah, everything's obviously super dry, though it is supposed to rain 2 days from now. Actually, there's like a 100% chance of rain. So it should be actually raining the day that we hike out, Saturday morning, and probably a little bit Friday night. Well, technically Saturday morning, probably after midnight or so. So I foolishly brought my down booties. Actually, I'll turn that back on so you can see them. Which, I wish I would have brought my Crocs like she did, because these things are, it's not cold enough, first of all, and also everything around us is rock, and if it's not rock, it's prickly. But these will have to work. You can see that there's still bugs, but they're not coming near us. These wool base layer pants are made by this company called KUIU. It's an ultralight hunting company, and what's cool about them is that they have full zips that run down the sides, so you can start to hike in them in the morning if it's cold, and then you can remove them without taking off your pants or your boots, which is pretty amazing. So, yeah, it is. It got pretty windy last night. Yeah.
actually using this system for my pillow. That's Velcro. Because now that I'm using a quilt, there's nothing to keep the pillow in place on the quilt itself, because you can't stuff it in the top of the quilt like you could a sleeping bag, so it just constantly moves throughout the night. So the Velcro actually worked really well. And it doesn't appear to be coming off the pillow or the sleeping pad. And then my wife actually just used a piece of non-slip, like that stuff you put under rugs. It's just a piece of non-slip material. You put it on top there, and it actually... Did that work? Yeah. So the sun's about to come up in, I think, about 25 minutes. We're gonna make some coffee. Some of the Bustelo.
Yeah.
So this is the Pocket Rocket Deluxe, and yes, the advantage of it is that it has a built-in sort of windscreen around the flame. So this is the first time that it's actually really being tested. I mean, not used, but tested, as in there's a pretty strong wind coming directly at it, and there's nothing here in between to block the wind. So it's just for coffee though, so we don't really need to bring it to a boil, but it'll probably be close to a boil. So the coffee we got is Trader Joe's. It's like all-in-one little packets. Has like creamer, sugar, and then we're mixing some Cuban coffee in with that. Got a weather report on my GPS, and there's like a 70% chance of rain starting at around 6 a.m. through most of the morning in the early part of the day. So we're going to be doing the exact same trail. It's just, instead of stopping about 2-3 miles short of the trailhead, we were going to stop and do a second night, but now that it's going to be raining, so we'll see. Alright, so a little update on the sleeping bag, or excuse me, the sleeping pad system I had with the Velcro. So I put Velcro on the bottom of my pillow, and then I put it on the sleeping pad itself, so my pillow wouldn't move around. And it worked great until the morning. So when I went to pull the pillow off, the adhesive on the Velcro came off, and it basically peeled off the sleeping pad. So I could actually see it was starting to come off the pillow itself too. And the stuff I got is pretty much the strongest Velcro you can buy, but it comes with an adhesive on the back side of it. And I thought about using some kind of glue because I anticipated it coming off, but I didn't want to put super glue on my sleeping pad because the chemicals in that stuff can be pretty potent, and I wasn't sure how it would react with the plastic. And I had no clue, but with my luck it would melt a hole in it or something. So I'm gonna have to look to a different system, maybe that non-stick material that I gave my wife to use. So we'll see. Both of us are actually wearing turtle skin snake gaiters, as you can see here. And it's mid-February, so you really don't have to worry too much about rattlesnakes in Arizona this time of year, but you can see them any month of the year. And someone had told me they saw 2 this month, so we already have them, so it's not like we had to go out and buy them. But the one kind of ancillary benefit of them is that they act as briar guards. Obviously, if it can stop the fangs of a snake, it can stop a sharp object on a bush, so they're actually great for that. And turtle skin are the lightest and the most flexible gaiters you can buy. So I think they're about 100. I got mine on sale, but I think at full retail they're like 140, something like that. Still a rattlesnake. This is what a rattle sounds like. So it's hard to tell, but that cactus right behind me is probably at least 25 feet tall, and I think they can live to be, 200 years old. And I think the pronunciation is saguaro. But But yeah, I think they can get up to like 40 feet. We wanted to make it down to see the organ pipe cactus, but that's basically right at the border. And we were in Tucson yesterday, but it's still a bit of a drive from there, and we're kind of short on time. So we actually came out here for a wedding. The wedding is tomorrow, Saturday night. So when we landed in Phoenix, we drove to Tucson and we went down to look at the set of Hey Dude, which was a show on Nickelodeon that when I was probably like 10 years old was obsessed with. So it aired in between like 1989 and 1992. And I actually got a souvenir from the set. So the set has just been rotting in the Tucson desert for the last 30 years. On Sunday morning, we're gonna drive to Sedona and probably go hiking there and stay overnight. Then we're flying out of Flagstaff back to Nashville. But we were gonna drive to the Grand Canyon and then do a day hike there and then go back to Sedona, but it's just too much driving. I think the Grand Canyon from Phoenix is like, it's over 3 hours, and then it's another like 2 back to Sedona. And we both really want to see Sedona, so rather than get there when it's probably going to be dark, I think we're just going to drive to Sedona and have more time to see it. I think we are going to hike out today. It's going to be about a little over 8 miles today, and at easy 8 miles. There hasn't really been any significant uphill or downhill. For that matter, it's been pretty flat, which is great. So we knew that. I mean, that the hard part was going to be the beginning of yesterday. But we were going to camp within like 2 to 3 miles of the trailhead anyway. And we're just thinking there's no point to really do that if we're going to wake up and it's going to be raining. Have to pack up all our gear in the rain. If this were a 4-day trip, that'd be different, but we're not really missing any scenery because we're going to be hiking the exact same way. We're just going to hike that last 2 or 3 miles back to the car and get a hotel room in Phoenix. So the view back here is amazing. Back there was an unofficial kind of trail junction, and that's why you really need a GPS, because in a situation like that, a map would be basically useless. I mean, obviously you want a map too. I have a map, but with a GPS, I use the GAIA, it's GAIA, the app, and I download a map of the area beforehand, so I can keep my phone in airplane mode the entire time and still track exactly where we're at. So actually both of us have it. We each have our own account. And the reason that we don't share an account, because I think you can have it on more than one device, is that if one of us would accidentally delete the map that we downloaded, that way it doesn't delete it from both phones. So like her map is on her own account and mine's on mine. I think that's just a better way to do it. Granted, you have to pay 2 annual memberships, but it's well worth it in my opinion. But yeah, so there was the trail split back there, and it's really not clear which direction that you would go just by looking at a map, because I mean, you'd be able to understand the general direction, but, and this has happened several times actually on this trip, especially when you get to a dry stream bed, it can be difficult to tell how far down the stream you need to walk to pick up the trail. And there's lots of offshoots, right? Because people get out of the stream bed at different intervals trying to find the trail. So it can be somewhat difficult, but I mean, the only reason I even have the map is a backup. I don't take the map out. I've actually never even looked at a map on any trip we've ever been on, but I take it as a backup, but we just use the GPS. So we're now within 3 miles of Peralta trailhead, back where we started. Actually probably less than 3, but we are not regretting our decision to hike out today, because we haven't seen any water in probably 2 miles, and we were planning on camping within 3 miles of the trailhead. So there's also very little by way of campsites. We saw a couple, but they were within 20-25 feet of the trail. It's not to say that there aren't any, it's just kind of finding a needle in a haystack, walking off trail. And also, this is a lot more overgrown. So the off-trail hiking we did yesterday up that mountain to find that campsite was, well, it was harder in the sense that we had to climb up the side of a mountain, but there were no bushes that we had to navigate through. Where here, it's really overgrown. As you can see, it's just really grassy, and who knows how long it would take to find a campsite that's, you know, off the trail, secluded, flat. The good thing is that if you do find one, it's probably going to be grassy, which can't really do a fire there, but it's a little bit more comfortable to sleep on. But yeah, I don't know that there's really any water, that there's going to be any water at all. And we took a picture of the water report that they post on the trailhead, but this area wasn't on the report, so finally some water. Let's see. Yeah, so this is as early as we could have tried to find a campsite. Would be pretty much from here on, because there's no way we would have stopped before we found water. So we'll see what it looks like, but it doesn't look good in terms of spots we might have selected. At least stuff that's not like right on top of the trail. So anytime you see a lot of campsites that are like right off the trail within 6 feet, that's usually a pretty good sign that there's not really anything else available, most of the time anyway. So there is a site right here actually that would have been doable. I don't know if I'd make a fire right there with all this brush around, but it's probably about 50 feet off the trail. So honestly, if we were staying out here this night, that's where we would have camped probably for sure. Just because any farther, I mean, we're going to be super close to the trailhead, and you don't want to pass up a site like that and, you know, hike another half mile and find out that it's only worse. It's also within 100 yards, well, probably 50 yards of that water. So yeah, that's probably where we would have camped. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Sorry I didn't film anything when I got back to the trailhead. We were exhausted, and we just wanted to pack up and get out of there. So it's a good thing we did hike out early, because it started raining that next morning when we had planned to hike out about 6 a.m. and rained really good for about 12 hours. So we're actually in Sedona right now, and this is probably going to be the next place we do in Arizona. Probably not anytime soon, because we're just here on vacation, so we're not going to come back in the next year or so. But man, this place is incredible. So again, thanks for watching. I'm going to have a gear video that comes out after this, just with some updates to some gear changes that I'm going to make, and some stuff I learned on this trip to the Superstitions.